threw me off. No,
All right.
you're good. I'm introducing Dr. Jeff Roberts today. He's going to be presenting SACSCOC Isn't Scary, an introduction to institutional accreditation in the upcoming 5th year interim report. So this session is going to provide an introduction overview of Lone Star's institutional accreditor, the Southern Association of Colleges, and Schools Commission on College. And it's also going to highlight the focus of accreditation upon the institutional quality and improvement and show the alignment between SACSCOC accreditation standards and many of our institutional processes. This session is being recorded, so everyone will receive a link afterwards. And then if you have any colleagues that missed out today, they're welcome to go and review this. But without further ado, Dr. Jeff Roberts.
Okay, thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. We're going to talk about SACSCOC today. Thank you for coming. Thank you for taking time out of your busy days doing curriculum team tasks to come to the session, learn a little bit about our institutional accreditor. Hopefully you're going to learn some things today. Of course, the quick doesn't work. Just do the old-fashioned way. So who am I? I'm Dr. Jeff Roberts, Executive Director for Accreditation and Compliance for Lone Star College. Very quickly, who are y'all? We just got a few, just enough folks in the room for me to actually get you in person. So, who are you? Where are you at? What unit are you with?
Nelson Ramirez, North Paris Philosophy.
You, sir.
Krista Spears, Math and Computer Sciences.
Keep going.
Ashley Bryant,
I'm Krista Ramsey, I'm the Director of Library and Medical Services here at Commons. Susie Ango, Curriculum Management.
They worked at accreditation and just in North.
Bill Moon, Lower Campus. Alejandra Solis, Director of Communication at Humboldt Campus.
Our new person.
Hi, I'm Kiwana Francis, Lone Star Commission of Paris.
Just one or two of you. What are you hoping to learn today? Everything I know. That's I'm an old philosophy student. There's an old story of Socrates. A friend of his was going to the oracle at Delphi, and they asked Socrates, he's like, Socrates, if you want me to ask a question of the oracle, what would it be? And Socrates is like, I would like to know who the wisest man in the world is. And his friend goes to the oracle and he comes back and he says, well, philosophy, right? You know the story. And he comes back and says, Socrates, I talked to the oracle and the oracle says it's you. And Socrates goes, well, that's impossible. I know nothing. How can I be the wisest man? And he devotes his life to trying to find someone wiser than him. And he goes and just asks questions. He asks questions of everyone that he meets. He tries to learn as much as he can. And he comes to the conclusion that, well, maybe the oracle was onto something, because I go on and talk to all these people and they say that they know everything, but they really don't know that much. But I'm open-minded and curious, and I'm willing to learn. So I will do what I can to teach you what I know, but I don't think I know that much. So, but I will do what I can to impart what I do know upon you today. So I work for the Office of Accreditation and Compliance. I report to Senior Associate Vice Chancellor Dr. Christina Haggerty, who is serving as our SACSCOC liaison, and it seems as of today also our acting or interim chief academic officer. So congratulations to her. My office provides support, guidance, and resources and oversight to Lone Star College's institutional. And when I say institutional, we're going to kind of substitute in that SACSCOC accreditation efforts, and that is inclusive, if you've ever had to work with me in this regard, substantive change. We're not going to talk about substantive change too much today. It's one of those things that if you're involved in it, you're involved in it, and if you're not, be glad that you're not. But it actually is a lot of what I do on a day-to-day basis. Other things that my office does is we maintain the faculty credentials table. The qualifications table is published on the website. We work with the curriculum teams when there are needed updates need to be made to those credentialing guidelines. Notice I said the word guidelines. In SACSCOC parlance, there are no faculty qualifications requirements. Can't always convince folks around here of that sometimes, but we get to pick how we credential our faculty and how we determine qualifications. So we establish guidelines to help guide that process, but there's always wiggle room if we can justify it. I also provide support and help as appropriate to our college-wide programmatic accreditation efforts. So every once in a while, we'll get a call from one of our programmatic accreditors or one of our programs that have programmatic accreditation. Take, for example, nursing or some of our allied health programs that are needing assistance, needing documentation, needing evidence that our office can support. But generally speaking, for day-to-day, they have program directors that are handling a lot of their day-to-day accreditation efforts. So they have a miniature version of me helping guide their processes with their discipline-specific programs. So we've done this already a little bit. What is your role? What is your program office, campus location? 3-session self-assessment. And you don't have to out yourself. It's okay. But on kind of a scale of 1 to 5, how would you rate your confidence with regard to your knowledge of SACSCOC accreditation? And if there is anybody, Brett, that wants to offer up where they're at on that scale, this is a safe place. We're all good. Number one. That's all right. Hopefully, we're going to go up some today. Anybody think that there are 5?
In my area?
Yeah. In the library services, in the library, yeah.
High score.
Yeah.
Solid 4.5. But for everything else, it's why I'm here. I'm trying to learn more about.
I used to, when I would do these sorts of trainings, I would ask this question a lot. And you know, we were like, because this was part of self-assessment that we would use. It's like, are we effective? And we would actually see the numbers go down. And I was like, why are people less confident? And then we started looking at the data. Well, they came into the session all reporting 4s and going, well, yeah, I've got this. And then at the end of the session, they're like, oh, wait a minute. I'm not as confident as, and that isn't necessarily a bad thing. Knowing what you know and knowing what you don't know. That isn't a bad thing. So if you're up, if you think, boy, and at the end you go, oh, I learned some things today. And now I know I need to know more. That's also good. So, pop quiz. Test some of your knowledge. Show of hands, yes or no, and then I don't know. Are LSU's colleges, Eastern North, University Park, Cy-Fair, Montgomery, are they each individually accredited by SACSCOC? Who thinks yes? Who thinks no? Who's like, I don't know, yes? The answer is no. Lone Star College is accredited by the Southern Association of Colleges. All of our colleges are technically speaking branch campuses that are subsumed under their big specialized version of an off-campus instructional site. And they are subsumed under that larger accreditation. So Lone Star College Montgomery is not accredited by SACSCOC Commission on Colleges. Cy-Fair is not individually accredited by Lone Star College is, and our accreditation covers all of our campuses and our programs. How many instructional locations does Lone Star College have? 1 to 10, 10 to 25, 25 to 50, 50 to 100, more than 100, I don't know, Jeff. 1 to 10, show hands. 10 to 25, 25 to 50, 50 to 100, 100 plus. The answer is 100 plus. We have approximately 120 locations of instruction. And you're thinking, yeah, every speaks 28. Well, that's our branch campuses. That's our center. Locations of instruction include everywhere that we physically offer instruction. Go credit. When I talk about substantive change being the bane of my existence, go credit friends that are driving me nuts. Adding locations left, right, and center. And we track it. We're offering one class in person at a location. That is a location of instruction we have to track and monitor. And it starts getting the SACSCOC implications when you start getting percentages and thresholds. So we have about 120, but have to go run the list because we just added a few more. I think we're probably closer to 126 now that our office monitors and tracks. Pop quiz. How many SACSCOC standards are there? 1 to 15, 16 to 30, 30 to 45, 45 to 60, 60 to 75, or I don't know yet. We'll start at the bottom, work our way. Who's like, I don't know. 60 to 75, 40 to 60. Anyone less than 45? Anyone less than 30? Anyone less than 15? 74, depending on how you want to count. And whether you include principle 1.1, which is integrity, which is the standard that we're always held to, but we never have to answer. That's one where if you get caught lying, it's where they whack you with a stick. And then there's some standards that like 14.5, which is an A and B, and that's like extra policy things. So that can vary depending on what extra policy they have in place. All right, so approximately 74. Do you find SACSCOC scary? I see yeses and I see nos. It's okay if it is. I'm hopefully going to take some of that fear out of it. This is my favorite thing to say, and I get in trouble saying it sometimes, but I'm never going to stop saying it. Somebody asked me, would you say this bill? And I said, yes, I have said this bill. President of SACSCOC. SACSCOC is a bunch of hippie gym teachers. They just want you to show up and try. Accreditation is about doing best practice. If we show up and do our best, we're going to be fine. If we show up and do our good faith, best effort to educate our students, to take care of our faculty, our staff, our pieces, do right by our mission, we're going to be fine. And it shouldn't be scary. And you got people like me to help it not be scary. Where the chancellor this morning was talking about how he's the shield when the phone calls come in. SACSCOC is that same thing for us with the Department of Education and some of our international forces. We have things that we have to do for them, but at the end of the day, they're here to help protect us. So what is SACSCOC anyways? I want to keep an eye on my time. Southern Association of Colleges and Schools Commission on Colleges, and they do like it when you say the whole thing. They hate it when you just say SACS. It's actually not a full named organization. They were founded in 1895. It is a private company. It's privately owned. It's not a governmental agency. It kind of meets a legal definition of a quasi-governmental agency because of the role it plays with regard to the financial aid to talk about. It is, you oftentimes would see it written or heard it referred to as a regional accreditor. That changed about 6 years ago by federal definition. Under the DeVoe Department of Education, all the regional accreditors went away. They all became institutional accreditors. No real change other than where institutions were required by geographic region if you were accredited to one regional accreditors to be accredited by your regional accreditor. Technically now, institutions have some greater degree of choice in terms of if they want to go with another institutional accreditor. There's some greater flexibility there. That is at the discretion of the institution.
So if there were a Northeastern Association of
And there is.
there'd be some, and they're picking up the Ivy League schools, would there be some asset for us to, put a feather in our cap to say we those guys?
In my opinion, not really. Because if anything, SACSCOC is considered to be the primitive crop of accreditors. We get the reputation of being the toughest. I like to think that means we just hold ourselves to a high standard. So it really isn't a matter of institutional quality, because there's a lot of Ivy or Western Ivy Leagues and top tier one research institutions in SACSCOC that would rival institutions from anywhere else in the country. You've got A&M, UT, Georgia Tech, University of Alabama, University of Tennessee. That's
All heavy.
yeah. We've been accredited by SACSCOC since 1976. We were founded in 1975. I think 1975. We just 50 years. So basically, from our foundation, we sought accreditation. And as I said, Lone Star College is accredited by SACSCOC as a whole, and that accreditation covers the full scope of our locations and program offerings, not our individual campuses or programs. So sometimes we'll get, hey, is this program accredited by SACSCOC? SACSCOC doesn't accredit the program. They accredit Lone Star College, and they approve us to offer things within the scope of our mission and our functions. Technically speaking, all institutional accreditation, SACSCOC included, is voluntary. Technically speaking, you don't have to be accredited, but that comes with consequences. How are the standards derived? To maintain accreditation, we have to maintain good standing with SACSCOC. There's a set of standards. We've talked about those 74 standards and core requirements. Some of these are informed by U.S. Department of Education rules and regulations. We don't get to choose on those because the Department of Education has said thou shalt. And our regional and our accreditor has written rules around that saying thou shalt, because it's based off the Department of Education rules and regulations. And they actually go through a form of accreditation with the Department of Education. They get judged on how well they judge us.
So the DOE shut us out of what grants?
We'll get that. Yep. Some of these standards, a good portion of them, are decided by us. And who is us? It's the member institutes. So when institutions join SACSCOC, they are represented, it's in representatives to the meetings that have a say in how the standards are organized, that say how the standards are written and are regularly revised. So we have a voice. It is a peer review process. When people say SACSCOC, kind of SACSCOC is going to review us, there's a vice president that comes and kind of facilitates the trip, but the visiting committee is our peers. It is people from other colleges like us, just not Texas. Not Texas. Conflict of interest. Which can make it a little challenging for Texas schools sometimes because we're so big to find peers like us. So we get a lot of Florida schools, some of the Virginia, Carolina schools, the bigger community college systems. So why do we have to be accredited? Getting to your question. Technically speaking, we don't, but there's consequences. Under the Higher Education Act, this actually goes back, I could do a lot of history, it goes back to the original GI Bill. The Department of Education recognizes accrediting agencies. The Secretary of Education determines to be reliable authorities regarding the quality of instruction of institutions of higher education. We don't have a Ministry of Education in the United States, like a lot of countries do. Ministries of Education in Great Britain or Australia or other countries are that check and balance. Instead, the Department of Education uses the institutional accreditation process and institutional accreditation by a recognized agency as a measure of institutional quality for access to Title IV financial aid. So, yeah, we don't have to be accredited. We would lose all of our access to Title IV funds. So I say voluntary with quotations. So we want our students to be able to get federal financial aid. We must be accredited. Let's talk about how this operationalizes. And I don't know if I'm going to go through every one of these slides, but we're going to go through a few. Whether you realize it or not, the SACSCOC standards guide and influence almost everything that we do in terms of institutional practices and functions. And the fact that you don't realize it means that we're doing it right. It means that we've integrated it into just our daily operations. They don't even realize that we're doing these things because there's broader outside requirements. And given that these standards guide and influence our practices and functions, as I talked about, if we operate with best practice in mind, we'll never have any issues with SACSCOC. Every year we talk about how this day, Curriculum Team Day, and the functions of the curriculum teams in general play this important role with regard to accreditation and our good college functions. It's true. All of it is true. Y'all are vital, necessary components of our faculty governance oversight processes with relation to our academic programs, our curriculum, our courses, our policies, assessment of student learning, and more. We could not do it without you and the curriculum teams. We need you to make the magic happen. So let's talk about how this affects in practice. Now let's just start with the biggest thing possible, our institutional mission. If you're not familiar with our mission, vision, and philosophy, there it is. I won't read it word for word. We have one. You may be asking, why do we have to have a mission? I mean, you know, every institution has one. But why? There's actually a SACSCOC standard for that. 2 of them, in fact. For requirement 2.1, that we have an institutional mission that is defined, comprehensive, published, and specific to the institution and appropriate for higher education. The mission needs to address teaching and learning, practical research, and public service. And that our board regularly reviews that mission. So we couldn't have a mission if we want to. SACSCOC standard. It's from their perspective, one of those, and it's as it is a core requirement. That is either something that is federal government related or inherent to the functions of colleges and universities that SACSCOC says that it's core requirement. Let's look at some others. Staff and faculty hiring and evaluations. Why do we have to have all these policies and trainings? Why do we have to evaluate our faculty every 3 years? Why are we employees evaluated every year? Wouldn't it be so much easier if we just didn't have to evaluate all those adjuncts? Want to guess what? There's SACSCOC standards related to that too. Standard 5.4, institution employees regularly evaluate administrative and academic officers. These are the big wigs. Everyone but the chancellor, and there's a separate policy for the chancellor. It's not going to give you all that one today. We publish and implement policies regarding appointment, and regular evaluation of non-faculty personnel. And in this case, SACSCOC defines regularly as at least once every 3 years. On staff side, evaluated every year. The faculty, it's a weird schedule. Don't get me wrong. I've looked at it. But that 3 year, why 3 years? They were coming from us. Standard 6.3, the institution publishes and implements policies regarding employment, and regular evaluation of faculty, regardless of contract or tenure status. Faculty or faculty. Full-time, part-time, workforce skills instructors, non-employee adjunct, dual credit, the education. Faculty or faculty. Why do we have to have so many full-time faculty? Well, we have to have an adequate number of full-time faculty to support the mission of the institution and the goals, to support our functions and what we do. And for each of our educational programs, we have to employ a sufficient number of full-time faculty members to ensure the curriculum and program quality, integrity, review. That's something that people that are there all the time, it's hard to do that with just adjuncts, right? Because they don't have the, you know, a lot of that work's taking place when they're not getting paid. And they may not have that same level of deep discipline-specific knowledge in terms of theory, background, to be able to, they may, but they may not. The right review curriculum to make those curriculum changes, to recommend that, to establish that faculty governance, that faculty authorities of our curriculum.
You also have a hold on one minute.
So, you know, the role of adjuncts, and I do believe that our adjuncts should play a vital role in these processes. But we have to, at the same time, have that core cadre of full-time faculty to do those program governance duties, the things that go above and beyond teaching the class, delivering the learning outcomes, assessing student learning. Program coordination. Part of what y'all are doing here today. For each of our educational programs, the institution assigns responsibility for program coordination. Do I have any curriculum team chairs in the room? Or former chairs? Okay. De facto program coordinators. As you are facilitating that curriculum team for that given year over years. And it's a team effort. When we talk about program coordination as a whole, when I write about this, and the standards and the reports that we have to submit. We talk about our curriculum team process, how every one of our programs have curriculum teams that are made up of representatives from each of the campus locations that offer the programs, that send representatives to this, that discuss curriculum, that discuss student learning, that are in charge of curricular revisions, all the things that y'all been talking about in your curriculum today. This is what y'all do. Faculty qualifications, we talked a little bit about this. We have to justify and document qualifications for our faculty. That's why we keep a faculty credentials table. As I've said, there's actually no faculty, there's no SACSCOC requirements. There's guidelines, but not requirements. They rely on us to make a case for the qualifications of the faculty we have identified and hired to teach our courses. Evaluating student success and learning. Bunch of standards here. 8.1 is the student achievement. It's kind of an institutional level. 8.2a, that's program level. And SACSCOC defines an educational program as a coherent set of courses leading to a credential. So that's a level 1 certificate, a level 2 certificate, and an AAS all stacked together are 3 separate programs. Because they're each a coherent set of courses leading to a credential. And for each program, we have to identify expected outcomes, assess the extent to which those outcomes are achieved, and provide evidence of student data based on the analysis of the results. Institutional improvement continues for student learning. So when y'all are talking SLOs and PLOs and assessment data and did our students learn and what are we going to do about it? That's where it's going. Say 2A. And why we're doing it. In addition to, we want our students to learn and get better.
Well, we end up getting pulled in multiple directions.
Yeah.
Too.
Absolutely. It's hard to balance all this out because then you have H2B, which is core assessment, general education assessment.
Well, workforce program, we also have.
Yeah.
Part of external.
You got WECM outcomes, and then you have maybe programmatic credit or discipline specific outcomes, expectations in regards to student attainment. Yeah. General education. Chris Tikosh has been going around talking to folks about this today. Using our curriculum teams, and I'm going to bounce through a couple of these to get to some meatier ones for y'all. Program length. Has anyone ever asked why our associate's degrees are 60 hours? Used to be more. State's cut down on that. They've cut down teaching CBs for our associates and bachelor's for the bachelor's programs. They've cut down to the minimum level identified by SACSCOC, with some exceptions. And coordinating more, but SACSCOC is at least 60 hours for an associate's degree, 120 hours for our bachelor's degrees. My apologies. I'll call you back, Faye. And we don't offer graduate degrees, so you can just ignore that language. Where's my workforce people in the room? Have you ever asked yourself, why do we have to have these 15 pesky hours of general education?
Yes.
In addition to providing students a good foundation and broad humanities themes that are vital to help them think and learn and be good citizens, it's actually SACSCOC requirement. All associate's degrees are required to have a minimum of 15 hours of general education, basically 25%. That is a bunch of things. That is, and so this thing also explains why we pick the courses we do from the areas in which we do. Because one course has to be from humanities, fine arts. One course has to be social behavioral sciences, and one course has to be from mathematics and natural sciences. And they can't be skills-based courses. So just, why can't studio art, or we're just teaching them how to paint, be a general education course? Because it's teaching them the skill of painting. It isn't teaching them art theory. It isn't teaching them art history. It isn't teaching them the broader humanities skills that a general education course should. Yeah. For my academic transfer course, folks, you're probably asking why? Well, why is there 42 levels in our core? That's a state requirement. This is one of the areas that the state actually exceeds SACSCOC requirements with regard to. Now for us, we still have to have at least 15 hours within our associate's degree of general education. But for a lot of our academic transfer degrees, as 42 hours is Texas core complete, we shoot for at or about that number for as many associates as we can to facilitate academic transfer. Yeah.
So the 15 hours is minimum for work
For any associate's degree. And that would be AA, AS, or applied associates. But and so for our applied associates, our workforce associates, we do have that kind of, the most are at 15 hours. For a lot of our academic transfer associates, the AA and AS, just write it down for AA with flavor. They try to be full complete to facilitate that transfer to 4 years.
the curriculum decides increase.
You could, though, for the workforce programs, given that you want to have as many of those specific courses, and you're depending on the program as you can, you have to catch that. Now, there are some that would include in some hours that would count, but it's usually in math and science areas, but those are also double dipping into key areas of knowledge for that workforce. So that's the balance.
There was a giant battle with.
Yeah. 1,300.
100
Yeah.
birds those, classes.
Because some programs didn't have the hours to give to stay at 60 or just above with state approval. Some programs are 63, 66 with state approval because of licensure requirements or training requirements. That just means that we can't fit it into 60. Academic governance. I can't emphasize this point enough. Faculty are key. Faculty are key to our academic governance. We have to have y'all. Sometimes my life would be easier if y'all weren't around all the time, but if we really wouldn't have an institution. I say the same thing about students sometimes. We have to have policies that we publish and implement on academic governance matters. Decisions around awarding credit. We have to place primary responsibility for the content, quality, and effectiveness of our curriculum with you. Y'all are the experts. I think Dr. Keshwala used those exact words this morning. Where it came from. You are our experts. You don't want me making decisions about your curriculum. My degree is, my master's is in history, and my doctorate degree is in higher education administration. I might be able to do all right with the history curriculum team. I have thought. It's been a while. But I wouldn't touch on skills or disciplines. I did philosophy where I was an undergraduate major. I wouldn't be qualified. So I don't have that graduate level knowledge and experience to know the field of discipline. Same thing in 10.7, publishing policies for determining amount and level of credit awarded for our courses. These policies require us to have our persons academically qualified to make those decisions. They'll be the first line of defense. Now, there are multiple steps to the approval process, but it starts with the curriculum teams. Right? We need y'all to make the recommendations. We need y'all to make the initial approvals to tell us what is reasonable. And sometimes that has to be overruled for measures of extrinsicy, or it just isn't going to work in the bigger picture of things, because you got to fit the whole puzzle together as an institution, right? And sometimes the puzzle pieces don't just quite fit. If you ever wonder why something gets kicked back sometimes. But if it really is important, if we got to start with y'all, we need to start with y'all. So when we come to y'all and say, we need your input on faculty workload, we need your input on class tasks. Those are real asks, because we're relying on y'all's thoughts and oversight and input in these processes.
Question.
Evaluating awarding credit. There's a bunch of these. 10.8. The point I want to give And there's 74 standards. And I could go through every one of the 74 standards and talk about how it touches the institution. I didn't even talk about library services. But I think we're going to be here. I'm going to throw it in. I almost did. But there's standards related to library. There's standards related to public safety. There's standards related to student complaints. There's standards related to our institutional facilities. Everything you can imagine is related to some aspect. Helps us function. Gives us the rules, the guidance on what we need to do as an institution. But I do want to just finish up today talking a little bit about the 5th year interim report. That's our next big report. I do reports every day, all day, most of which you don't need to worry about. Most of them are related to dual credit sites and substantive change. But we got two biggies, two big reports that we have to do as an institution: compliance certification and supporting documentation for our decennial reaffirmation and a 5th year interim report. We finished up our decennial reaffirmation successfully in 2022. We'll have it again in 2032. The 5th year interim report is midway between those decennial reaffirmations. That's the title, 5th year interim report. Our next 5th year report will be due to SACSCOC September 8th, 2027. They've actually got that date already written down. And it'll be reviewed by the 5th year interim review committee in November of 2027. In addition to this report, we will have a second report we will have to submit. Anyone here that was here during the last 5th year interim report? They had to do both reports in too. They got kind of late. A little fact about me. Prior to coming to Lone Star almost 4 years ago, the COVID hire, right in the middle of it, during our decennial reaffirmation. I've been in higher education for 20 years now, but all the 4-year institutions. Same State University, Texas A&M. And I've done 5th year interim reports before. And I got here and they were talking about, oh man, the 5th year interim report was so terrible. The site visit that went along with it, we had to do, we're really prepared for it. And I was like, site visit? There's no site visit in the 5th year interim report. I've done a 5th year interim report. The secondary report. Do I have the title there? Yes. Interim off-campus instructional site report. We add so many off-campus instructional sites between our reaffirmations, or decennial reaffirmations, that they make us do a whole separate report in the 5th. And that requires a site visit. It's a separate report reviewed by a separate committee and comes with a site visit, but it is at the same time as the 5th year report. So we're going to be doing them both. The 5th year report, thankfully, is a set of 22 of the 74 total standards, so it's much smaller than a full reaffirmation. And an interim off-campus instructional sites report, it's only 8. I give an asterisk there because only others, only 5 are requiring us to specifically address only those off-campus instructional sites we have added since the last reaffirmation, which I think is going to be about 10. Give or take. And as I said, that interim report, interim instructional sites report, will require a site visit.
Does that make it more challenging? Because we're kind of, well, I don't know exactly how you define it, but if they're dual credit and off-site, are they out of our control?
No. Anything that is a site visit is more challenging, but with the last reaffirmation, we visited about 30-something dual credit sites. So, because from SACSCOC's perspective, the fact that it's a high school doesn't matter. If we, it's like an embassy. It's a little piece of Lone Star College right there. And we have obligations with regard to the adequacy of facilities. We have obligations regarding the British faculty. We have obligations regarding the student learning. And if we can't assure those things, then SACSCOC would tell us, well, then we shouldn't be offering classes. What they really don't want to see is that it is just a tent set up on the side of the highway, or an empty building and an office park. There's some institutions of that. So, yeah.
You got a food truck.
Yeah,
You told me after Harvey,
I did.
like some temporary.
Yeah.
Did they show?
The last one we had was the dental annex. So we had the dental annex so long, Because of the natural disaster with Kingwood and other campuses, we had emergency approval to basically relocate instruction without having to go through the whole process. But the dental facilities took so long to get back up and running on main campus because of the unique construction problems that site took on so long that they actually had to get it approved temporarily as an approved location of construction. And then we had to close it with SACSCOC once we figured that. So these are the 22 standards that are going to be on the 50-year report. You don't need to know all of these. I need to know all of these. But just to give you an idea. Covering all the core requirements, I believe, and a couple of the other major standards. These are the must-haves. And the idea of the 50-year report is so long between decennial reaffirmations that this is a checkout for us to make sure that we're still trucking along and doing all right. And you can see some of the ones that we talk about up there, though. Qualified administrative academic officers, full-time faculty, program coordination, program faculty, student learning, policies for awarding credits, admissions policies, practices, and then some other. So you'll find it. No longer standard from the year before. But
Sections of 12.1 and
yeah,
8.2C.
you do. And we'll need you on that interim offsite report as well.
10.6, have that. Skip it.
Well, we didn't. We have a law of distance education. LSE Online. LSE Online. And any online offerings. I mean, technically, distance education is more than just online. Distance education is defined by the Department of Education as being education in which the professor and the students are geographically separated and can be delivered to a whole bunch of means, including electronic transmission, direct-to-video, RTV. That's the original distance education. Well, correspondence education is the original distance education. But you know, when they started beaming, you know, you had a professor at U of H that was in the classroom, and you could listen at like 2 a.m.
I took those.
Yeah. RTV courses. Online is just a fancy version of RTV. And well, and particularly when we're requiring, so this is where I run into something that's not my dual credit post. When we require the students to go physically sit in a room at the high school to take the online class, or the high school requiring them to sit in a room. So we are requiring them to sit in a room and engage with those instructional materials for an online class. That is a location of instruction. It is a physical location of instruction for distance education. The professor and the students are geographically separate. Yeah?
Change ever, or they different for different institutions, or for a 5-year report?
So this is the standard 5-year report right now. SACSCOC revises their standards about every 10 years. Used to be back in the day, the Higher Education Act was reauthorized about every 10 years, and all the accreditors would change their standards up based off of what the new rules of the Higher Education Act were. We haven't revised the Higher Education Act as a nation in about 18 years now. So SACSCOC keeps on their schedule. They just did their last big revision in 2019, 2018, the new standards in 2019. They did a 5th year minor revamp. 2023, which is the standards we're going to follow now, is mostly editorial. They'd be scheduled again in 2029 for kind of a big revamp. When they did 2019, they renumbered everything. So this is the current numbering system. So we'll see what the 2029, 2023 with revisions would spell. But for now, the content is basically the same, though, even from the massive revisions pre-2019 to now. They streamlined some things, they changed some things up, but the spirit of what they were asking for really hasn't changed. The 8 standards for that interim report, library information is on those. I should have put the asterisks for the ones that have the asterisks inside. So Jeff, if we're not supposed to start, if we're not to turn this thing into 27, why are we starting right now? Why is that's like 3 years from now? We're starting to get ourselves time to do it right, and by God, we're going to need that time. I want to run through a quick timeline, and if We are right at 3 o'clock. So if you do need to go back to your curriculum teams, please do. But if you got just 5 more minutes, we can get through this. We're starting right now, or this fall, with an internal review of the applicable standards for both of the reports and beginning to do gap analysis to try to find any areas where we might be weak. Because now's the time to fix it. Not 2 years, 9 months from now. Now, if it needs to be fixed, we want to fix it now so we have it operationalized and we can show evidence that we're doing it right by the time we submit. Next spring, as Dr. Keshwala talked a little bit about today, we're going to do a big kickoff. It's going to be a party. I'm going to try to have cake. We're going to start identifying committee members. We're going to identify the applicable offsite locations for that interim report. We might even start distributing initial work assignments in terms of kind of helping us write those narratives. A lot of this is going to be high-level administrators, senior academic leaders, but it will trickle down. And we're going to continue to work to address any areas of weakness. Fall 25, that's when we're going to start gathering data, evidence documents. It's not about what you say, but what you can prove. The difference between an assertion and a fact is a footnote. We're going to work with writing teams to begin drafting those narratives to the required standards. We're going to work with our off-campus instructional sites to draft narratives and prepare for those on-site visits, begin those initial preparations. And we're going to continue to work to address any a weakness or concern. Spring 26, the process continues. Evidence gathering continues. Writing teams are going to be completing their first drafts of the response narratives for the reports. And we're really going to address any remaining areas of weakness or concern. Fall 26, continue gathering. Finalize and begin editing and revising our response narratives. Beginning logistical preparations for site visits. And by God, we're really going to get those areas of weakness and concern figured out. And believe me, we'll still have some. I've done this enough times that I've seen it. Spring 27, we're submitting fall 27. Everything needs to get finalized that spring semester. Into our software package, ready to go. Finalize all of our evidence and supporting documents. Finalize the logistical planning for our site visits if they're going to fall that fall. We'll have to work that out with SACSCOC. We're going to start rehearsing those site visits, practicing, putting people in the rooms that we want to have in the rooms, figuring out what that's going to look like. And by God, at that point, I'm going to string up by thumbs anyone that's still responsible for anything that's going to be causing us problems. And we will fix it. Fall 27, we submit the reports and celebrate. Either in that fall or in the preceding spring, we're going to do the off-campus, the site visit for those off-campus instructional sites. That will be on a timeline determined with SACSCOC. It'll be later that fall, might be early spring, 28. And we're going to find out by December the results of the 5th year review committee. Yeah, so the review committee meets in November, and then they'll announce the results for the December 2027 annual meeting. They put it up on a big screen for everybody to see. And they publish it to their website. And spring 28, if we do have to do that on-site visit for those off-campus instructional sites, if it wasn't conducted in the fall 27, we'll do that. Finalize anything that we have to do with regard to that report. If there were any findings of non-compliance from our 5th year report, we will be asked to provide a follow-on report in that spring semester. We will prepare and submit that. And then we'll celebrate again. And then I'll get about 1.5 years off, and then I'll start working on the decennial draft. Just remember, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. So that's our plan. We're going to try to follow it. We're going to try to follow those timelines. Try to make this process as easy as we can for long-term college. Do it right, do it well. I have a pretty good track record with these things. I'm not going to let this 5th year report below. The SACSCOC isn't scary. Not if we do it right. And if we act right. So, post-session assessment. How do you feel now? Anyone, you don't have to give a number, anyone feel more confident? Anyone feel less confident? It's okay. Talk about that again. Questions? And we are technically past our 3 o'clock, but it is 3:05. I said if you gave me 5 minutes. I'm happy to stick around to answer any questions you might have. Pick my brain. If you need to go, I think that they're doing tours now. Go join up with that. Feel free to that would be much more interesting than talking to me about the accreditation week. But I'm happy to stay for anyone else. Thank you all.
You know how to make sausage.
But you know, it's a good gig if it's your thing. Yeah. I always say that I'm a poster child of marketable skills. So we had this big thing right in Texas, and it was a big thing with coordinating board about 10 years ago. We want all our programs to prepare students to have marketable skills, things that that makes them it makes them more employable. I'm a humanities major. I double majored in history and philosophy. My master's was in history. I did the better part of a PhD in history before I switched to higher education. Other than adjuncting in history, I don't teach history. I don't teach philosophy. I'm not a philosopher, and I call myself a historian sometimes, but I'm not a very good one. But my program taught me to read, they taught me to write, taught me to think, and those are the things that I do. So that's also the value of our general education, even for our workforce programs.
I always told me, I don't care whether you got an engineering degree or sanitation engineering degree, just the
Yeah, and the ability to think, to problem solve. Yeah. Yes.
So, back to number 3.
Yes.
Stated that each of our sites are not accredited.
They're not.
So much study is going forward.
So that was the initial battle. That was a level. So that was a unique report, and we only have to do once. So unless the state changes the law, we won't. Did you have a question? So most of our college was offering computer systems. We were authorized by the state legislature years back to offer up to 5 master's degrees for the next service. We were designated by SACSCOC. If you go to SACSCOC's homepage, you can actually click on institution to make that problem. We're designated currently as level 2 institution. So prior to the submission of that level 2 and approval by SACSCOC, we're level 1. And depending on what level of institution you are authorized to offer.
Especially the library.
Level 1 institutions are only associates institutions. So level 2 institutions are bachelor's awarding institutions, but not graduate. And then level 3 is graduate and doctoral. Level 4 is doctoral, but up to a certain point. And then level 5 is you have this many doctoral programs, and then level 6 is you've got this. And it helps them classify because that helps them have things like. So we as a level 1 or level 2 institution that is doing high level theoretical research is not an mission. That they can. But we're not Texas A&M.
member position.
Yeah. Which is a level, yeah, which they stay in positions, right?
And so that's where.
Thoughtful wording. And that influences everything. So if you, from a leader standpoint, talking about that mission, which they will share, if we had a bunch of things in there about how we're doing all this research and all that, they're gonna look at that and go, not that that's not, but how is that appropriate?
And so.
Yeah.
Because that's where.
Yes,
So that's.
we do it every so often.
That's the part.
Usually in time.
That's what I think.
So I'm gonna participate,
Right,
we're
and-
kind of filling
But
in,
then,
or
because of how they're
first,
thinking,
that would be
most people.
monitoring that, and we kind of done some of that on the fly as well with the chancellor goals.
That's actually where the big.
Kind of taking our existing
So.
So, yeah.
That's like the. I think, but like, I fall behind this, there's two whole things.
So,
On site, there's a few things that needs to be put out, especially if I'm asked for a question. It's the whole thing. That question, which looks at her, and say, hey, I didn't have.
I wouldn't be my favorite section. So, we did the last round.
That's the first thought too.
We talk a lot about what happens. We talk a lot about the work about the architecture
So
and
it was
about how
something that was.
um
Right. So your president
and how
has
it was
to go to the board and say, hey,
So,
you know, this North Harris.
with I know you're prepared for a lot of things, right?
But those
Um,
are some serious too,
we
but like,
talk about
they're.
talk about
So the
Well,
president has to go to the board and say, okay, we have an accreditation.
Yeah, because when
Create, allow us to employ,
You know,
we slide.
that can when they come and look at us.
It's a simple.
They do look.
The other solution
But they
is like.
come to like they did last year. If they see
We want to do this, we complain about data, see something about gas waste, and we'll make but that's not. They can because of it, like you're basically taking
That's
just
good.
transfer
Now,
away, just the entire.
if we're able to make do, if we're able to,
So,
building is having an issue
really
preparing it.
blow up,
Yeah.
blow up each
Right.
other positions
Move
and
things
the
around,
system as we know.
And we're doing
for-
construction here, that we still have adequate space.
That's my high course about
Right
it, I'm
classes.
you know, thinking about it.
That, you know, students labs have some necessary space. So it's created adequately, because that's it's actually, you have to remember, there's as far as the lowest.
So.
Yes, and it's key words, you know, we want to strive for best. But we have to make sure that we're maintaining. So. That's an excellent question. So for the interim off-site visit, they're gonna visit those sites specifically at, and it's gonna be. If they got that on the ground. Because they reviewed a sampling of our stuff the last, like 36 or 40 organic structure sites. They visited, and that was in addition to coming to every branch. So they visited every branch campus. And we let, I think they hit every center. What it's about. And they got a bunch of work. The community they sent out, later on, and because it's coming out of COVID, they did a virtual site. Recorded video, interviews, for Department of Education. They actually then made SACSCOC send a site team here. Actually, specifically, because it requires it to be specifically done in Paris. That these facilities are out of sites. I know. It has to do. To do my role, that time you can make sure it's all has to do with.
Libraries are like all the same page.
So,
like,
first of all,
maybe you need to.
The federal government says
Right.
something for that.
So
And literally, colleges and universities would set up. And they were exploiting students. They were exploiting students. And a lot of funds got distributed in ways that weren't appropriate. So when they rethought and they authorized the first time higher education. That's when they said, well, we don't want to have to